I know you heard me on the radio. Flexing. She loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K. I know you heard me on the radio. Flexing. She loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K.
We are back with Night Watch. I am Larry K. We are discussing Rutgers' 74-63 win over Merrimack today. Rutgers moves to 4-0 on the season, still ranked number 24 in the AP poll. Ace Bailey in his second game as a Scarlet Knight has a double-double, 23 points, 10 rebounds, 1 assist. I thought Ace really started to come into his own a little bit tonight. At the end of the day, you know, there was a shot or two where I thought it was a little bit just taking a chance, and I didn't love the shot. But by and large, and for the most part, Ace Bailey, I mean, that turnaround, I would call it a mid-range, but it was really almost a three-pointer, even though it was definitely a two-pointer. The turnaround jumper with two guys on him is just indicative of what this young man can do. The follow-up on the putback dunk, and just the passing and the defending of Ace Bailey. I think the way Ace has been defending is something to be reckoned with and is something to really pay attention to. And not just the sheer skill of his ability to defend, but his effort on the defensive side of the ball, coupled with that skill, has really been something to marvel at. And I'll add Lathan Somerville to that. He forces a travel, and before he forces that travel late in the second half, he's up on the guy out on the perimeter with maximum effort. The effort of these freshmen, who are offensive-minded and talented offensive players on the defensive side of the ball, has been absolutely excellent. That being said, there's still something to be desired, I think, on the defensive side of the ball if you're Rutgers right now. This is now 4 games, and none of these teams are at the caliber or level of teams we're going to see very shortly and then in conference and hopefully beyond. And these teams are going on spurts where they're scoring consistently. They're going on spurts where even if they're not getting the shots to go down, they're getting decent looks. And they are keeping pace with a Rutgers team that, given their offensive talent, should really be running away with games. Now, am I being a little bit nitpicky when you win by more than 10 points and when you've had mostly comfortable margins up to this point? You're sitting at 4-0, and Rutgers, even in years past when we've had talented teams, has not looked so decisively good even against the early schedules in years past. Maybe I'm being a bit nitpicky, but you want this team to go as far as it possibly can go, and if you want that, you have to be a little bit, just look a little bit at the defensive side of the ball and hope we can make some improvements. I thought over the last couple games, Rutgers has been fighting through screens much better. The effort's been there, but at times, you know, we've still gotten beat. And you had Clark on Merrimack today, 22 points. It seems that most of these teams have had at least one guy who takes control of the game and can score, you know, quite consistently. Now, that's partially because of the way Merrimack is built. That's partially because they build around one guy that way. And you had Durkak last year. You have Clark this year. So it's kind of how their team runs. They run through the strength of an offensive focal point. At the same time, if another team has such a focal point, you should try something to slow them down a little bit. I'm not saying they didn't slow them down to some extent, but you know, there were times Durkak was on him, and then you had Jamichael Davis on him, and both times, you know, he beat them off the dribble a few times. He beat them cutting to the basket a few times, and I understand there's not one single shutdown defender on this team. Like a Caleb McConnell, and I know I said the other day that Durkak was trying to kind of in that role, but he's still not Caleb. And I think, you know, that's just something to keep an eye on, whether it's, you know, playing a little more team defense in that regard, and they did. They got off their men and doubled when they needed to, but then guys were finding the back door. Whether that's maybe trying a guy like Ace on some of these, superstar players, given his sheer athleticism and I think his abilities on the defensive side of the ball, whatever that is, I think it's something that we should address. I would say that this was Agbole's best game, probably, I thought. 6 points, but 7 rebounds. And I just think this game in particular, compared to other games that we've seen so far this season, Agbole, to me, really had his presence felt on the court much more than we've seen in previous games so far. And I think that's a great thing. And I liked how Pike... I don't have the minutes right now. For some reason, I'm not getting minutes in the box score and looking up the stats of this game quite yet, so I can't tell you the minutes of Somerville versus Agbole. But it seemed to me that Agbole rotated in with Somerville a little bit more evenly, a little closer to evenly this game than in previous games. And I thought it made sense because his presence was felt, the physicality underneath the rim, his ability to come down with the ball and then make some decent offensive moves, clean up some shots and get some rebounds on some other players. And I just think that if he can come on and be a little bit more of a force in, down low, I think it'll be good for the team long term, especially when you start banging with some real strong guys in the Big Ten and you got to get through that schedule and you can't play always the type of style we want to play and you've got to bang a little bit down low. Getting him reps, getting him comfortable, getting the team comfortable with that lineup and that pace, I think is important. And props to Pike for getting Agbole in there, and props to the young man for making his presence felt and taking some strides forward. Now, Somerville, obviously, still a force. 9 points, 3 rebounds. I liked his energy all over the court. Obviously, still a player with a ton of upside. But if you can work Agbole in there a little bit more, and when you need him, you can use him, I think it's going to bode quite well for the season. So I liked seeing him in there, and I do think this was probably his best game thus far. Jeremiah Williams can't knock the energy all over the court. Beautiful force out of bounds on an inbounds pass. Some plays that kind of got away from him, I thought. He can do that sometimes. He's a facilitator. He brings high energy. He obviously was a key part of the team last year and will be a key part of the team this year, but sometimes can get a little out of control in that way. And that's the kind of normal thing with Jermichael Davis. Beautiful put back in there at one point, but some other shots and on defense where, you might be asking for a little more. Dylan Harper, still the constant on this team. 14 points, 6 assists, 8 rebounds. Just the constant you really want to see, the constant you need on the team. And, a couple three-pointers from the perimeter that I thought, Dylan might have wanted back, but still nailing a couple. And he's a consistent, steady force when you need him. And I was thinking about this while I was watching the game, if it gets into a point where it has already this season, where we're going on a little bit of a drought, where the other team is hitting shots and we're struggling at the rim and beyond, do we have a guy we can go to? Now, you look all over this team and there's guys everywhere that you could potentially go to, but who is the guy that you're going to rely on to get us out of a funk? Who is the guy that's going to settle things down and find the right shot at the right time and be a steadying force to not let teams kind of run up on us too much or get too close to us? And as much as Ace is a supremely talented player, and I think there's still a possibility that it's Ace, because Ace, especially down the stretch in this game, once he really hit his stride towards, as the second half wore on, defensively on the boards and from a scoring standpoint, really was unstoppable in a lot of ways. It could still be Ace. But I think there's a certain steadiness and a certain, wise decision-making ability that Dylan Harper has that may well make Dylan Harper that guy later in the season when we need that, energy and we need that player in those moments. I just think Dylan Harper has the proper skill set and he plays the game, the way you want to see for a guy who can do that for you. But it remains to be seen because Ace's talent is so supreme. And obviously Dylan's extremely talented right up there with Ace, but different styles of play. So that remains to be seen. And again, Harper's just been such a consistent force, game in and game out. And, he did it again today. I thought on the rebounding front once again, and I think this is really important because I mentioned this earlier in the season, and it was going to be a point of emphasis and something I honed in on while I was watching. Could this team do what Pike said they need to do and rebound as a team and really put forth that effort in a way that impacts the game and changes some of the discrepancies we had earlier in the year with rebounding? And that's 2 games in a row now. I think it's worth pointing out that the team has done that, and they have accomplished that goal, right? 30 defensive rebounds today, 17 offensive rebounds, and they out-rebounded Merrimack on both ends of the floor. 30 defensive rebounds, 17 offensive to Merrimack's 8 offensive and 24 defensive. I thought Ace Bailey, again, hats off, I'm going to say it one more time. Richie O'Leary had remarked that Ace is a tall guy. He's going to have to get in there and rebound. He's not afraid to get in there and rebound. You're watching the game, and Ace Bailey's getting in there. He's crashing the boards. He's constantly a force, on the boards. And it's not just a one-off thing. He seems to be that consistent force. And I think that's really important for the team going forward. If they're going to be a better rebounding team, they're going to need Ace to get in there and do that. He was actually the leading rebounder with his double-double today with 10 rebounds. Outdid Harper with 8, Durkak with 6, Agbole with 7. So that's a team effort in general, but that also shows Ace getting in there and being a real force on the boards. And just for a supremely skilled athlete like that, you're going to need him to contribute in all facets of the game. He's not just here to be a relentless scorer. That's a big part of it, but he's here to defend. He's here to facilitate for his teammates, and he's here to crash the boards. And you're seeing that really start to take shape here as the season moves along. 41% field goal percentage, 7 of 17 for a 41.2% from beyond the arc. That is something that's going to improve all year for Rutgers compared to years past. You saw Zach Martini. I just love his cool, calm collectedness. You needed a big shot. You needed a three-pointer. He misses one. He calmly heads back down to his sweet spot in the corner there near the baseline, grabs the ball, puts it up, sinks it, puts Rutgers back ahead, I think, by 10 at that point. It was absolutely needed. And he's just a steadying force, a veteran presence that can shoot from beyond the arc. But everybody can shoot from beyond the arc on this team. Acuff hits, comes in, not for very long, but he comes in, he drills a 3. PJ Hayes comes in, he hits his shot. So, as I've been saying, you have a deep bench here, and these guys can do things. 14 assists as a team, 4 blocks as a team, 6 steals. We did have 10 turnovers, and I thought there were times where I did think that we displayed that kind of erratic offense that we've seen in years past under Steve Peichel, that kind of troublesome people, where we're taking shots that aren't the best shot selection and we're missing them and we're getting into a drought. It was brief. Again, I don't want to nitpick, but this is supposed to be somewhat of a fan channel, but also a channel with commentary to really discuss things. And I want the absolute best for this team. And after seeing this team through 4 games, the sky's the limit for this team. So I'm sitting here excited about where we are, but I'm looking at areas that could be improved and areas to take a look at as the season wears on, because I hope these areas continue to show growth as we go on. Like I said, you got pretty much one crack at this iteration of the team, and these guys are going to grow as the season goes on, and you've already seen a lot of growth. You've seen growth in the rebounding. You've seen growth in certain players becoming more well-rounded. You're seeing growth this game on Agbale. You're seeing growth, from Somerville. You're seeing growth from really everybody. So you're going to that's a perpetual process this season. So just pointing out these things, not really trying to get overly critical, but just pointing some of these things out. I thought that those ill-advised shots could sometimes rear their head, because I think guys, want to be the difference maker. They want to be the guy to break the drought. They know they have the talent. Every player that gets time on this team. It's an extremely deep bench, and I think every player's capable of that, so sometimes they want to do it. That's good news and bad news, right? It's good news because you never know who's going to break the drought. Any one of them can do it. Just get an open shot. You could do it. Zach Martini came through with that shot this time. At the same time, everybody kind of wants to do it, so some guys might try to take the ball and take matters into their own hands. That really hasn't happened as much as I feared it could this year at all. These guys know how to facilitate. They love playing for each other. They seem to love playing as a team. So, conversely to that concern I had in that little bit of a drought, I will say one of the most impressive things, just with the eye test, by far, one of the most impressive things about this team is their ability to pass the ball. And I'm not just talking about an offensive philosophy of moving the ball around or, 3 guys touching it before you get a shot or something like that. I'm saying just the sheer ability to see and find open people all over the court, and then upon seeing them in a split second, getting them the ball with an efficient, safe pass is you could belabor it. It sounds silly. It sounds fundamental, but it's not. You look at these guys, and the way they're able to get the ball across court into tight windows at a split second and be on point and not put it in harm's way too much is really astounding. These players, and Ace Bailey, I mean, you're starting to see him really. It's his second, legit game. And you're starting to see, I mean, his passing ability to top off his defensive rebounding and scoring ability is eye-popping. Man, it is. But that's a lot of the guys on the team. I mean, these guys are finding creative ways to get each other the basketball and create opportunities that is really impressive to look at. And I think you're watching Merrimack. They're playing a zone that gives people fits from time to time, has been known to do that. And Rutgers is not, contrary to years past, Rutgers is not sitting, beyond the arc and chucking up threes or standing around and relying on ISO and then trying to kick it out for a three without a better look. They're penetrating effectively. And after off the penetration, they're finding guys wide open or open enough to drill a three. Or they're driving and finding guys cutting to the basket with a great opportunity to lay it up or dunk it. And it's just really hard to stop when these guys, with all the talent they have, are keeping their eyes open, looking to facilitate, looking to distribute the ball, but also pulling the trigger when need be. It's a beautiful thing to see. Now, things are going to get tougher. And you're going to be playing teams who can guard you maybe a little bit better. And at that point, when you go on a drought or things are tough or you're playing from behind a little bit, it's going to be interesting to see, again, where are those steadying forces? Who do they go to? And, do they get into a place where they're trying to be the guy who gets them out of the drought, or are they going to maintain that ability to distribute the ball? I believe in them. I believe they can. But with a team with that much talent, it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that type of adversity if and when it comes. 17 of 23 on free throws, 73.9%. You'd like to see that get a little bit better. These guys are going to get fouled. Merrimack, their two big men fouled out relatively early, like midway through the second half, maybe a little past midway through the second half. Got in foul trouble early in the first half. So that's not the first time we've seen teams get into foul trouble against Rutgers. Now, I understand this is early in the schedule, and some of these teams are going to foul maybe more than some of the teams we get into against the Power 5 later in the season. But I don't think it's going to change a whole bunch. I think we have the way we play ball, the way we have these athletes that are getting to the rim, that are doing what they do. Other teams are going to hit us. They're going to foul us. You got to be good on your free throws. We've been getting a ton of them. You're going to be in one-on-one situations in tight games. You're going to have to drain them. So hasn't been bad free throwing, but it hasn't been optimal per se. Game in and game out. And 73.9, I wouldn't say was exactly where you want to be. As I said, 47 total rebounds, just great. Um, Still no minutes here on the stats. I really wanted to talk to you guys about the minutes. I thought that would be an interesting thing to look at because I think the minutes were a little different, specifically down low. It seemed like, I can't attest to this without the minutes in front of me, it seemed like Agbole got more time, even though Somerville still got his heavy dose. And it seemed like Martini wasn't as, he was still involved, but I don't know that he was as involved as some of the last couple games. And Pike's going to play with these lineups going forward. But as we're getting close to a 5-game road stretch. We're getting close to the tournament. We're getting close to some of these, ranked teams, and we're going to see how Pike handles the lineup. Now, with respect to handling the lineup, I've heard some talk that, usually Pike does consolidate and restrict the lineup to about 7 guys as we get down the stretch and we start getting into the Big Ten schedule. I don't expect him to necessarily tighten the lineup all the way to 7 guys this year. I think part of the reason he had to tighten it to 7 guys in years past was we really only had 7 guys to go to. I think this year the bench is going to be deeper and his substitutions are going to run deeper. I think what we'd all love to see is not massive substitutions all at once at pivotal points in the game that could screw up momentum. There's been it's kind of been a trend a little bit sometimes, and I think it makes fans want to pull their hair out. You don't want to see that. But I'd like to see, just like you saw tonight, you see Agbole go in a little bit more, than he usually does. You have all these different players to work with in terms of what position they can play, which lineups they can get into, and whose role changes in different lineups. And I think that a lot of things, if we can get it to a place where we're not just rigidly deciding on certain lineups every game or like hockey lines in that way, but where we really are looking at a game and it's matchup dependent, and we look at the matchup, and then in game we make adjustments based on the matchup and the way that other teams are playing us, to go deeper into that bench and get the right combination of guys on the floor game to game. I think that's a key this season. I think this is the first season in a long time where you have a bench that deep. You have players that diverse as far as their skill sets and ability to score and ability to facilitate and defend. There's not a guy that's played thus far that I think can't do that. I think some guys' minutes might be reduced to some extent based on the way they're playing, based on the opponent, based on consistency. But I don't necessarily expect Pike to consolidate and constrict the lineup that much as we've seen in years past. Now, things are going to get real in a hurry here, so we'll see whether I'm right or not pretty soon. But, those are the things I'd say. I'd say, great so far to see the growth out of some of these players. Epic, just amazing to see what a guy like Ace Bailey can do as we get further into everything. And we do finally have the minutes here. So Somerville played 18 minutes and Agbole played 19 minutes. So I was right about that. In every previous game, Somerville was outplaying minute-wise Agbole by a good amount. He was getting upper 20s minutes or something, and Agbole was getting much less. Agbole 19 to Somerville's 18 today. So like I thought, he mixed in much more evenly. I don't expect to see that all the time. I think Somerville obviously has more upside. I think Somerville has a certain skill set that's hard to match. But I do think when you need the presence, the physical presence that Agbole brings down low, and when you can use that to your advantage and use it strategically, getting him the reps, getting him the minutes now, and getting him comfortable, and having him be a force, like I think, again, it was his best game of the season so far, will help us and bode well for us down the stretch. So I'm hoping that happens. Martini, 24 points, so he really played starter minutes as usual. So I maybe he just wasn't. I didn't feel him as much, from a scoring standpoint, because he had 5 points, did have 1 assist, did have 4 rebounds, but he still played 24 minutes, which was right up there for probably 4th most on the team. Ace 33, Harper 30, Durkak 25. So those are kind of your guys, and I think they're kind of locked into that. I would think that you kind of are going with those guys. Durkak, Harper, Bailey, Martini, and then depending upon how the game's going or what's going on, that Somerville versus Ogbole type thing at the 5. But you're going to have guys rolling in. You're going to have different lineups. Williams had 19 minutes. PJ Hayes had 14. Acuff, again, with the lowest. But I think Acuff also brings a lot to the table. And, you know, depending on how things go, I know there's a lot that, you know, the staff likes and that we've seen from Jermichael Davis, and he's a team player and those things. I don't know what goes on in practice. But I wouldn't be surprised if Acuff and Jermichael Davis's minutes kind of even out a little more down the stretch, or even if you see a little more of Acuff in certain games down the stretch. But I did think it's just interesting to note the number 5 spot minute differential this game as compared to previous games, and I think it's just Pike letting his guys get some run and seeing what works there. So all in all, look. Fun to see the continued development of this team. Fun to see this homestand go the way it's gone. Great to see us not really in any real trouble for this 4-game stretch that we've been in. And there's still more to come. So we got to travel to Kennesaw State next, and that's on Sunday. And then you got Notre Dame, you got Alabama. All right, so you start getting into these higher tier teams, and the real tests start to come out. And so it's going to be really interesting to see where this team stacks up early in the year. I believe in this team. This is by far the most talented team I've witnessed in many years, and the potential is sky high. Sky high. I'd like to see defensively us continue to make strides and continue to grow, and I'd like to see the rebounding team effort in rebounding maintain the level that it's at now, at least. If it can maintain the level it's at now, at least, it really alleviates a huge concern going into the season. Now, I'm not naive. There's going to be games where teams, especially in conference, are just really good on the boards, and we're going to struggle a little. But if we can keep it at least respectable with the abilities we have on the offensive side of the ball and just in athleticism, I think it's going to help us even the playing field a bit. And again, I just think as Ace Bailey continues to grow as a rebounder, as a defender, and as a scorer, I mean, this young man's potential is through the roof. And I mean, if he really grows into the player, you know, quickly after the new year, we turn the calendar over to 2025. This is going to be something to really, really, really see. Not that it's not now, but I just think what you're seeing from all aspects of this young man's game right now is eye-popping. It's eye-popping. And I think Dylan will continue to be the steady force that he is and continue to elevate his game too. He's still adjusting to the college game as well. And I think you're going to see maybe a higher percentage from beyond the arc and things like that. But he's already a very steady presence, which bodes well for the season as he and these other guys try to guide this plane through this storm that's coming in the Big Ten and beyond. Guys, if you haven't done so yet, I don't know what you're waiting for. I mean, click that subscribe button. It's right here. It'll take you a second. Can we get to at least 700? I know we're on the way to 1,000. We're going to 1,000. But could you at least click it to get us to 700 just to start? Mike was telling you to do it. I'm telling you to do it. I'm all over the set here. I'm working pretty hard to bring you content, to collaborate with everybody, and to be another voice in this awesome Rutgers community. So go ahead and smash that subscribe button if you can. Remember, this is available as an audio podcast anywhere you get your podcasts. If you're listening on the audio version, stop by the YouTube. You can get a look at the video version and click subscribe. I am going to start going live here and there. I don't know when yet, but I do have the ability to go live, maybe do some live post games or some other live streams. Super chats are open. Super thanks. You can donate to the channel already. So I might go live here and there to get everybody's perspective and thoughts and to try to raise a little bit to keep the channel growing and to reinvest into it. So we will see how that goes. Speaking of being ranked number 24, we're going against Illinois in football this Saturday, noon kickoff, senior day. Please come out, and if you're a season ticket holder for basketball or you're a season ticket holder for football, they are offering cheap tickets to bring a friend, bring a family member, come on out to the game. But come honor these seniors. This Shiano called them the COVID crew, and these are the guys who came in, weathered the storm. Some of them were virtually being recruited. Some of them never set foot on campus. But this is the crew that really took a chance on Greg 2.0, and these are the guys that got us over that hump last year, got us to a bowl game and a bowl win, the first one in a very long time. And then this year have gotten us bowl eligible again, despite struggling through the adversity of the 4-game losing streak. These are guys like Tyreen Powell, and Robert Longerbeam, and Kyle Monungai, and Aaron Lewis, and Shaquan Loyal. These are guys who came in, set the tone, set the culture. I think even a bit, underlooked, early in their careers because the next class had so much acclaim. But these guys were really the backbone of the team and are really the backbone of the team. So come out and support them. Illinois, a very formidable team, to say the least. They've gotten losses against good teams. I don't think that their victories are necessarily anything to set the world on fire per se, but they're a good team, and I think their defense and the talent on defense, especially the pass rush, is going to present problems for Rutgers in ways that we didn't really have to deal with the last 2 games as much. Now, with guys banged up along the offensive line, and now obviously Needham's out for the season. Chin got banged up but came back last game. Taj was banged up a little, I think, came back in. So Kyle, he's playing. He had another good game, 2 touchdowns last week, but he's also had some bumps and bruises along the way. So we've been beating teams, and I don't want to say through the air because the running game has been a huge part of the victories both against Minnesota and Illinois. Whether it be Minnesota with the backup guys with Raymond and Benjamin, or whether it be Kyle again against Maryland, we've really opened up the offense and really kept pace and even surpassed some teams and made them try to keep pace with us through the passing game and harnessing the talent of these receivers on this team. Dymere Miller has really come into his own. He's always kind of been that player since the beginning of the season, but he's really come into his own a lot more as the season's gone on. And I think Athan really knows where to find him. And instead of just kind of barely getting past the sticks, he's really getting downfield and getting chunks of yardage. And then obviously you have the very talented KJ Duff and Ian Strong, who have opened up this offense in a huge way. And an offensive line that has really held its own despite getting banged up here and there in pass protection and also in run blocking, although I don't think it's where it was earlier in the year per se. But when you go up against a team like Illinois, it presents problems I don't know that we've had to deal with as much the last 2 weeks at the same level. So be on the lookout for Athan maybe having to release the ball a little quicker, maybe not having a great luxury back there. Not that he's had luxuries. I mean, Athan has been clutch. The snap on 4th down that he wasn't expecting, for him to corral that, find the open guy, pinpoint pass for the 1st down, the 4th down against Minnesota for the touchdown, pinpoint accuracy on a lot of throws, a lot of patience, knowing when to take off. I'm not taking anything away from Athan Kaliakmanis. I just think this week the defense might be a little tougher. But quite frankly, I like the Scarlet Knights in this game. I like the fact that we're home. I like the fact that we've been through some adversity. Illinois has been through some adversity, and their losses came to good teams, but I don't necessarily think that they are Indiana, for instance, despite the good season thus far. It's senior day. It's going to be a tough game. The line, I think, has moved a little bit. It's closer. It's going to be a toss-up, in my opinion. I think Rutgers can take it. And if Rutgers can do that, then I think, there's really a lot of momentum here to still lock in a season that is several steps, forward. And despite that 4-game losing streak, we really could be sitting in a place where we're feeling really good about this season. Not that we're not now, especially given all the injuries, but we really could find ourselves in a really good place. And I think, again, as I said, this team had a lot of potential this year. With the schedule, with the way it shook out with the bye weeks and the other teams traveling and our traveling and all those things. And injuries suck and injuries take a toll. And you got to factor injuries in, but you also got to factor, coaching philosophies, decisions. I think a lot of things that changed and that were recalibrated following the second bye week. And that's life, right? You get smacked. Things aren't working. You have some bad luck with some injuries. Coach Ciano even said it. You start plugging one hole, then you got to plug this hole over there. Then, you put a little gum over here and then some tape over there to try to fix things because guys are going down, getting injured. And by the time you look up and look at what you did, it's kind of way off track from where you want it to be. You got to take a step back, reconstruct, recalibrate. I completely 100% get it. So, I'm not being overly critical, but you have a situation where if you pulled 2 of those games out and they were in reach, or you should have at least been in reach based on who you were playing, you are sitting at an even better record here. So the expectations for this team were not misguided. They were not overinflated. The fact is you had a rough patch. You had some injuries. Now, you're going to a bowl game. And given all the injuries, and especially now looking at some of the development of the younger players and seeing what you're bringing back next year, which initially it didn't look as optimistic as to who you were bringing back next year. Now it looks much better. I think you can be excited about going to a bowl game, but I'd like to also see some more wins this regular season to really get over that hump to the next step. And another monkey off the back could be beating a ranked team and a ranked in-conference team at home this Saturday. So Brett Bielema's press conference, it seemed like the reporters in Illinois wanted to talk a whole heck of a lot about Illinois and all the praises and great things about Illinois, and didn't seem so concerned with their Big Ten opponent who's on a 2-game winning streak. I'm not attributing that to Bielema. I'm not attributing that to the players, but the media over there seemed to be that way. I tried to watch the press conference to glean some insight into what Illinois thought about Rutgers, and I couldn't find much of it in there. So kind of interesting. And if that has any indicia of what's going to happen this week, I like the way Rutgers has its passion lined up and what their mentality is right now. And I would say kind of just leave it at that. So, look, I'll be there. I'll be at the game. Last tailgate of the year. These seasons fly by way too fast, quite frankly. But the football season is back on track to a point where I'm more satisfied with it. And the basketball season is off to a momentous beginning to what we all hope can be something really memorable. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. There's some things to work on. We still have yet to play some of these big-time teams we're going to play very shortly. And so it's all up in the air right now. But one thing that's not up in the air is Night Watch being here for you to bring you Rutgers content, Rutgers reporting on football and basketball, and to be your objective fan / writer / podcaster on the front lines of Scarlet Nation. And I don't mean the website. I just mean it as us, the community. Again, if you haven't done so, guys, I'm asking for your subscription. Please help us get to 1,000 subscribers. Appreciate everybody out there. Appreciate all the other content creators that have been kind enough to collab with me, really hitting a new stride this season in particular. Make sure you catch me this week also on the RU Review with Steve Tishner. And we do have a new website launching where I'll also have some of my other written content. And don't forget about the College Huddle. A lot of the reason I've been able to collaborate with other people have been the College Huddle. Don't forget Big Ten football talk with Zach Guggenheim. Don't forget all those guys. I'll be doing some things with them shortly. Hopefully I can put a show together in the postseason, just kind of leading up to the bowl games and talking about some other things. I know that the last few weeks I haven't been able to get, it's not that I haven't been able to, but I haven't gotten somebody to collaborate with on the previews for the football games. It's just me going through the health thing, going through the procedure, being so busy with all these other things. I haven't been able to do it, but we will get back to that too. And part of the reason we were able to do that this year and really hit that next level was because of your guys' support. So your support is very valued, really appreciated. Any way you can support is appreciated. Like I said, click that subscribe button and catch me on the RU Review. I should be back on some of these other channels soon too. Whenever the opportunity presents itself, I'm there. And again, thanks to everybody who brings me on. Special thanks to Mike for bringing me on the post game last week. I'm always around, man. So hope you guys enjoyed the show. Hope this was a pleasant ride to work or a workday thing or a late night video to get your fill after another Rutgers basketball win. Go RU. Larry K is